Okay, in this video, we're going to actually practice writing in these short exercises on page 29, or 129, sorry. And we're going to do the top line together. And then for class, what I want you to do is I want you to set up the first chord of the rest of these, and then we'll look at them as examples. Generally speaking, if you set up the first chord really, really well, and you have this idea of smooth lines in general, you're gonna have nice part writing. Generally, if your setup's bad or you're jumping around, in part maybe because your setup for your first chord's bad, but or you just have a propensity to jump around and you're thinking like chordally, up and down and up and down and up, as opposed to linearly through the lines, then you have some problems. So I'm gonna pop this over here again. We'll do these top three together, and then your job is to set up the first chord, just the first chord of each of these other ones for the class, so we can look and see how we did, if it was good, if it was smart, if there's things to be looking ahead at. And as we do these top line exercises together, I want you to be also matrixing, not just like, oh, you're doing it with me and setting up the chord, but what's the process for part writing, okay? So put this over here, and I've got this here. I think I'll go to red pen. All right, obviously you got to be able to interpret the bass lines and the chords, right? They're figured bass and stuff like that, and the key. So I'm just going to do this here. If you at all struggle with spelling chords, this should be reflexive for you. And at student level, I wouldn't try and keep this in my head. So B flat chord, right? B flat, and then D, F, right? Same thing there, and then a 5 chord is going to be an F, A, C. First thing I do before I start writing is I'd remember that that's T right there, the A, right? And we don't want to double that ever because it's a tendency tone. All right, as I look at this, I know that I need to have at least a root and a third, okay? After that, doubling the root would be good. Doubling the fifth is okay because it's do and so in the key. We want to look at smooth lines that we can get through here, right? And I think because this is a big open space, the D's very high, the B flat's very low, we're looking at an open voicing. In other words, we don't want to just spell from the top and put like that note there and then the tenor's like up there. That's really hard on everybody. Nobody's moving around too much. I think it's probably better if we pop down and we look at our spacing as being, more normal, right? So because we have such an open thing, I'm looking at a more orthodox way of keeping my notes in their singable range and sort of in the middle here that's not going to make any kind of cross voicings. Once that's done, and if you look, I've got root, third, and fifth right there, and I can keep track of those. Then as we move to here, this just looks to me like try and be as smooth as possible, and I would just do that. It's the same chord. The outside voices are moving. These guys don't need to. In fact, these are voice exchanging, so this is like a strange form of contrary motion voice exchange. Now the soprano and bass are changing notes, and the other two notes stay the same. Very easy to sing, right? And as we go here to my 5 chord, well, I've got an F and I've got a C right there. I definitely need one of those, but only one, right? And then, whatever else is easy. And now if I look at my choices, again, don't look at this chord per se. Look at these notes coming in. And if you see, like, the F can just stay right there, and that can just slide down to there. And that's really good. How do we check for problems? Well, we check our doubled notes, and we check our roots and our fifths, because consecutive doubled notes could give us parallel octaves, and consecutive roots and fifths would give us either parallel fifths or contrary fifths. Now, we're not going to have any of those hidden fifths because the textbook wrote this, and they're not going to have problems with the outside lines they're going to give you. But if we look here, there's my doubled note right there. And because this doesn't move, there's no way that you can get parallel octaves or fifths. In fact, it's not even an issue because this is the same chord. You have to change chords, right? This is my root and my fifth, right? This is my root and my fifth. Again, it doesn't really matter because this one's not moving and that one's moving, and this is not considered parallel octaves because they didn't move. The chord didn't change. It's perfectly fine, right? Okay, go on to this one with me. You might try pausing this and spell out your chords ahead of me. In fact, you might try pausing this every step of the way and seeing how you do compared to what I did, but I'll leave that up to you. Okay, so we're in E minor. This is an E, G, B, right? Here's my 5 chord. That's going to be a B, D sharp, F sharp. I'm going to just note right now that you got to spell it correctly, which they did for us, but we don't want to double that note because it's T. 5, 3. So instead of writing out the chord again, typically what we do if it's the same chord right beside it and it changes inversion, we just change the figured bass. Normally 5, 3 doesn't have anything there, right? But because it's changing from a 6, they write the 5, 3 in there. So technically that's a 5 right there that we're not writing in. Okay, same chord, and then back to the E, G, B. Okay? All right, I'm going to set up this chord. See if you can look at this and say, well, you know, what's my options here? Like if I put my alto right here on an E, that's pretty good. I still have to get down below, but I probably can, right? Do you put the B right there, right, and double that? Do we put the E right there and have, 3 E's? I think because of spacing right here, I'm going to put myself on a B right there, like that, and I'm going to put myself on an E right there. All right. Before we go on, I want to point out because I'm emphasizing being smooth a lot of the time here. There's a real temptation to just take this down a step, right? Because that would be very smooth. But do you notice that this is an E and that's an E right there? If we come down like this together, we'll get parallel octaves. Plus, we'll be doubling the D sharp, which is T. And we don't want to do that. So there's going to be a little bit of a jump here, okay? Might have been a reason to set this chord up differently, but I think we're fine. I don't think it's an issue. I guess you could have started like this and then had that right there. But yeah, it's fine. Okay, so I'm going to pop this down to the B instead, like that. Okay. What would I do with this? Well, nothing actually. It's okay to be unison. Smooth is fine. This jumps down. Helps these people find their note because somebody else is singing it, right? And let's just check. Doubled notes does not go to another pair of doubled notes. Root and fifth. Well, this is my root and fifth right here, and that holds over and does nothing. So as this one moves, it can't be parallel fifths. Also, I think that's probably fine. You might say here's a root and fifth, but they're inverted, so it's a fourth, not a fifth. Okay, so I think we're good right there. Now, this is coming down here like this. That's holding over. So I have a B and I have an F sharp, right? I guess I put an F sharp right there. So I do need to have a D sharp, but only one of them. So, which is my best candidate for that? Honestly, I'm just gonna, you might say lazy tenors, but what that really does is that makes it so that you have one stable line that keeps us all there. It also avoids any parallelisms and things like that, before any of that happens, right? And then this can pop up to the D sharp, right? If you think about it, this is voice exchange going on right there while these two notes hold over, which is the way that we did the contrary motion voice exchange, right? It's good to remember that these are formula-based, even if the formulas are specifically made for root position, right? Contrary motion voice exchange, two notes hold over, okay? As we get here to the one chord, it's in E, G, B, so there's two ways this can go, and I'll explain this. We really want that G. That means this is either coming down to the G or this is coming down. Well, that's the only way it can work, actually, is this coming down to the G, because this can't leap down to the G below this note, right, if we held that over. And this can't go up there either. So this is going to have to come down to the G, right? It would have been nice to hold it over further, but we got to have a root and a third. And then here, you really have an option here. You can do that because T-do, and we can have root, third, still have a root and a third, right? And because it's the end of a line or cadence, that actually happens to have triple root quite a bit, right? Or because it's T, you want it to go to do, but it's in an inside voice. Remember 5 to 6 when we did those before, right? It has the option of jumping down. I think it has to jump down. So it would be to there. So either one of these notes is fine. If you want a complete chord sound, that. If you want the easy singing, that right there. Okay? All right, third one. Are you getting the hang of this? We look at our spacing, and then once that happens, we sort of, do this. Go as smoothly as we can, thinking about the notes that we need. We try not to bounce our lines all over the place. We try and keep one of them stable at least. Two of them is really nice. And we're looking for pitfalls like parallel octaves before they happen, right? So here we go. I'm in the key of D. This is a B, D, F sharp notes. This is a 2 chord, which is going to be an E, G, B. This is my 5 chord, which is going to be an A, C sharp, and E. And deceptive progression goes to 6, so that's going to be another B, D, F sharp. Okay, this is very high, even though this is also pretty high. There's more than an octave here. We're not going to put our alto line up here anywhere like that. That would be really bad, because then our tenors would be here somewhere and there'd be more than an octave, right? We're going to spread this out. So the real question is, do we go here or do we go there in the alto? And then, where do we go? And the tenors are already up pretty high, right? They're up pretty high already. So, the bass is up. So that's pretty high, for the tenors. We still have a little headroom. I think we're going to go B, D, and then, if we go F sharp, that's okay, because although it's an octave, this is coming down. If we go B, that's fine. We just have to be aware of our inner one here. Which do we do? I'm just going to do this for right now. Am I doubling the root? I'm not. But I think spacing is going to be fine. If we found that our intonation when we sang this kind of sucked because it was real clear when the sopranos were up here and they're struggling for this F sharp, that they're out of tune compared to the altos, we might shunt that up to a B flat. It gives closer range and it's not a pure octave. But that's a practical concern we need to look at when we sing, right? We go to our 2 chord here, E, G, B. Well, I think we'll just look and see how this goes. I've got an E and I've got a G. Technically, I don't need any other notes, right? I'm fine. My doubled note here is the F sharp and the F sharp. So as long as this doesn't come down to an E as well, then I'm fine. So I'll avoid parallel octaves like this, right? My root and fifth is this one and this one right here, root and fifth right there. And that's going down and that's going up. So I think I'm okay, right? This comes down by a third, that comes down by a step. It was pre-written for us, but there's also a root and fifth right there. Okay. So if I've got that there, what do I want right here? Well, I could go up to the E, right? That would be fine. I could come down to the B. And I know it's kind of high to sing, but this whole thing's been a little awkward. I think that's fine right there. So now I have E, E, G, and G. If you don't like that, we'll hold that as a place marker there. But I don't like that this is coming up, forcing us to go there, and we have roots and thirds, and it's probably fine. A, C, E. Well, there's my A. There's my C sharp. I can't double this note because it's T, right? So I think I'm just going to hold this right here because I don't want to come down and then have to, well, I don't know. We'll see. I think I'm just going to hold that there. Smooth is better, I think. And then we can come up to here or we can come back down to here. This is pretty high. I think we'll just come up. But then we'll do a check. Hope you're going like, that's what I would have done, because I'm going to trick you now. Look, G to A, G to A. Can't do that, can we? So coming down to there. Opposite direction, otherwise parallel octaves, right? Okay. Now that that's happened, you should assess the sound. Do you like the A, E, E, C sharp like that? Or do you want a fuller sound having, well, no, I don't think you can come down here as well because that's double C sharp. I think this is our only real viable solution. And then as we go to our 6th chord, remember that the rule is when it's in root position, everything goes the opposite direction except T goes to Do, which it does right there. So, if we're looking at this, this probably comes down to the D, right? Remember, 5 to 6 formula, steps up, everything comes opposite. Exception is T going to Do, which it does right there. Otherwise, you end up with parallel fifths and things. Like if I have my root and fifth right there, if this goes up with it, because you think that's close, then you get fifth and a fifth right there. So I think this has to come down to the D as well, which is awkward, but it is what it is, right? Like that. Okay. Now this would have been different if we'd started up here. We would have meandered our way down and maybe ended up, like on the F sharp or something like that, right? There are other tricks, by the way, when you're doing actual writing, where if you do want to get up there, you could get to here like this, avoid your parallel octaves, and then go like that right there with an eighth note or something, but, sorry, A, right there, like that, with an eighth note after, right? Bum, bumpy, and that would get us to there. So don't think that you're precluded from having this voicing in full-on writing. Right now we're doing sort of training wheels on. Okay, your job is now to do the rest of the exercises, just the first chord. Make sure you spell it right, make sure you have a root in the third, make sure you're not doubling any tendency tones, and make sure that your spacing looks appropriate so nobody's too high or too low, and the texture looks right, and it's going to go along smoothly like that. And we'll take a look at those and give you more context when we get to it on Monday.